Joining us now, State Senator, Northern Virginia, moving up in the Democratic ranks. One day is going to end up being Democratic Majority Leader, I predict. Scott Surovell with us. Scott, good to have you, Senator Surovell.
Hey, John, good morning.
Now, Senator Surovell, it's great to have you back. Let's start with the Republican lawsuit. You're a lawyer. You're a very good lawyer. And the Republicans have this lawsuit saying that Terry McAuliffe's edict to reinstate 206,000 felons in Virginia, they're saying is unconstitutional because he has to do it one at a time, mano a mano. And they said, look, Doug Wilder didn't do it. Tim Kaine didn't do it. Mark Warner didn't do it. Why is McAuliffe doing it? Does it have any standing?
Well, I'm kind of, I think it's interesting, this lawsuit. First of all, it's going to help get the word out. I think there's a lot of people that don't know yet they can get their rights restored. And I think the continuing noise that my colleagues on the other side continue to make about this are just spreading the word and getting more and more people to go out and register and sign up. And so I think, continuing to bang on things and make noise and complain about this is just helping us get the word out. It's also, I think, energizing people on people who know people who've gone through this, people who know ex-felons, to go out and tell them to go get registered and to hurry up and do it. It's creating urgency about it. In terms of the legal merits of it, I don't think it has any. I wrote a piece on my blog about 3 weeks ago where I pointed out I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that prohibits this, and I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that says it has to be done one by one. If you read the constitutional provision, it talks about how the Secretary of the Commonwealth has to make a report to the General Assembly for 2 of the 3 powers that the governor can exercise like this, for every pardon and for clemency, but it does not require a report for restoring voting rights or restoring civil rights. And I don't see the argument at all, and I don't think the lawsuit's going anywhere. I could be wrong. I mean, lawyers disagree about things all the time, and that's what judges are for. But I don't think the suit has any legal merit. Beyond all that, it's just, to me, it's just I'm really sort of scratching my head as to why somebody would file a lawsuit to try and keep a practice that clearly dates to Jim Crow, that was clearly put in the Constitution or kept in the Constitution to keep African Americans from voting. They were very explicit about it. Carter Glass in that Constitutional Convention was explicit. I can't believe a lot of people would want to be affiliated with that. But obviously I have my view of it, and not everybody agrees with me about it. But
well, Republican Party of Virginia, I would go after their. I would say, we're for incarceration reform. We got the highest incarceration rates, the highest recidivism rates across the globe. It's not even close. And I would go after their votes. I would say, look, we have a better jobs plan for you. We have a better economic plan for you. And I would go after their votes. I wouldn't be spending $1 million trying to defeat this but I guess a big part of their argument, and Don McKeechin talks in legalese and blows it up, so I can't wax eloquent the way he does. But one of their arguments is, well, these felons can sit on juries, and so you can be a rapist sitting on a sexual assault jury. And Tommy Norman brought that up, and when I brought it up to Senator McKeechin, who's running for Congress, he's like, well, that's baloney because they're vetted or something. How does that work?
Yeah, no. In every jury trial, each side gets a number of strikes. They get permissive strikes, but you can also strike somebody for cause. So that if somebody is sort of too close to an issue, they're too opinionated about it, you can strike them for cause if they can't be independent. I would think that somebody who's been convicted of the exact same crime, if it's a felony, there might be a strike for cause in there. Alternatively, the lawyer can simply strike that juror just because they want to take one of their strikes to strike somebody like that. I mean, I don't see that as a real risk. But I think a lot of people don't realize that there are quite a few felons out there that I think lean Republican or lean conservative. One of the first people who called me about this after it happened was somebody who wanted to get his gun rights back because he wanted to be able to hunt again. And the first step to getting your firearms rights restored is getting your civil rights restored. You cannot get your firearms rights restored until you've had your civil rights restored. And so there's 206,000 people out there that are now able to at least petition to have their firearms rights restored. The court isn't required to do it, and for a violent felony, I would think that a court would be kind of leery of doing that. But there are Republicans out there that I think are people that would vote for Republicans that are going to have their rights restored. So I'm not sure that the meme out there that these are all Democrats dying to participate, that every one of them is accurate. And this also, the thing you highlighted a second ago about the over felonization of this country, that's something that I know Ken Cuccinelli and I agreed on. Right now, I don't think under Virginia law, if you steal a $199 iPad, you can keep voting, but if it's a $201 iPad, you can't.
It's ridiculous.
That doesn't make any sense.
That's the other thing. When you look, people say, "Oh, felons," and you think, "Oh my God, it's a felony." But then when you look at the way the laws are written, I mean, if you steal over $200, it's a felony. If you steal a shopping cart with $202 of groceries in it, now you're a felon. So I don't know. I guess the Republicans have their reasons, and I do understand legitimately what they're saying. Also, their argument, like the Rob Bell argument, is look, a lot of these people haven't paid the restitution, they have not paid the fines, or they've not done the community service or this or that. I guess that would play into it. If you've not really owned up to whatever your restitution is, I guess you shouldn't have the voting rights restored. But I know if it was me, I would just rather say, look, I can offer you a better opportunity than the other guys, and here's why. And I would go after it that way, but that's just me.
Right.
I don't know how this is going to turn out.
When these people get whacked with $200,000 and $300,000 or even $50,000 or $25,000 restitution orders, and you get out of jail, it's hard to find a job. And the idea that you shouldn't be able to vote until you can find $50,000 or $100,000 to pay back when it's so hard to get a job and get back on your feet basically means you never vote. And I think that harkens back to the poll tax and a lot of things. There's reasons in this country that to exercise that constitutional right, it shouldn't require you to have to pay money. And I thought the governor getting rid of that requirement about 2 years ago that you pay restitution was a good thing.
I get back to what I said when this thing first happened. If Terry McAuliffe did the exact same thing and he made it effective November 15th, there would be no argument. The argument would just go away. I think he politicized it, and that's what he does. And so I think because he says, I didn't do it for the election, but he did it now so they can all get registered before the election. Had he done it effective November 15th, I really believe a lot of these arguments would have gone away. I want to move on to Bob McDonnell. Scott Surovell with us. Scott Surovell is a senator from the 36th District. That's part of Fairfax, Prince William, and Stafford. And Senator Surovell predicted 7-8 months ago on the air that Bob McDonnell would get exonerated by the Supreme Court 9-0. Now one justice passed. So is your prediction still 8-0?
I think he's going to prevail in his Supreme Court case. I'm not sure it's going to be 8-0. I think it's probably going to be closer, like 6-2 or something. But I also don't think he's going to get necessarily exonerated. I think he'll get a new trial. But I don't think they're going to issue some opinion saying, case dismissed. But I predict that they're going to say the jury instruction that was given was too broad. The way the law was construed was too broad, and that the jury should get to judge him by a proper legal standard. And they're going to tell him to go back and do it over again. That's what I think is going to happen.
So what changed your mind between 9-0 and now you think maybe 6-2 and maybe a new trial?
I was reading some of the coverage of the Supreme Court justices' questions, and it just didn't sound to me like that there was unanimity amongst the bench about how broad the law ought to be. And it's the way they're going at it, the way I think they're approaching it. It could have a very broad sweep. If the Supreme Court establishes a new standard for how we have to draft all criminal statutes, that's going to be very controversial, and I would be surprised if they can agree 8-0 on something that would sweep that broadly.
Right. All right. Well, so now you're saying 6-2. I got a text here from one of our listeners, Sarah in Northern Virginia, says, ask Senator Surovell, since when do governors make law? As referring when you get back to the restoration, Republicans are saying that he's making law, that the law in the Constitution says it's got to be done on an individual basis. So their question is, since when do governors in Virginia make law? What's your response?
If you go read the Constitution, go read the text. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners are, they like Justice Scalia and they like to think of themselves as originalists. Somebody needs to point me in the Constitution to where it says that this has to be exercised on an individual basis. The only thing the Constitution says is the governor may remove political disabilities consequent upon conviction for offenses committed prior to or subsequent to the adoption of this Constitution. It doesn't say he has to do it on a person-by-person basis anywhere in the Constitution. And so I don't think he's making any law. The way the courts look at the Constitution is they say, show us something in the Constitution that restricts the governor's power in that way. You don't have to see an affirmative grant. You need to see a restriction. And there's nothing in the Constitution that restricts them that says it has to be done on a person-by-person basis. It's just not there. The language isn't there. You have to read it into. You have to connect a bunch of dots to get there legally.
Okay, Senator, let's get to Terry McAuliffe investigation. We can't figure this out. Leaked by the FBI. We get the leaks. That's a whole system they have. But Marcus Simon made a statement that knocked my socks off. He said, wow, there's nothing there. And by the way, he's a House of Delegates member from Northern Virginia. Great guy, by the way. He's from Falls Church, I think. So Simon says, boy, this is leaked for political reasons. Well, it's the Obama Justice Department that leaked it. How does that make sense?
Well, we clearly got, there's clearly a campaign going on. I was surprised that, I was surprised that it got leaked too. I mean, when I read the article, it says that I'm not even clear who leaked it, obviously. It says it was a bunch of people who are anonymous because they could get fired for leaking it or something like that. And apparently the governor didn't even know it. And it sort of left me scratching my head as to exactly, I didn't fully understand what the leak was or what the point of it was or exactly what they're investigating. The articles themselves are pretty vague. But, the governor has had a top-notch legal team in place from the very beginning, vetting all of his political operation. And I'd be really surprised if there was a donation, especially a donation of that size. I think what they said, at least from what I read in the article, was like a six-figure contribution. I just can't imagine that.
120 large.
Yeah, 120. I mean, I can't imagine a $120,000 contribution came through that wasn't vetted by a team of lawyers, and that's why I just don't understand what the investigation is or what they could be looking at.
Well, I think they're looking at what was the genesis of that money. They're tying it to the Clinton Foundation, other stuff. Now might be another gubernatorial candidate that pops up in this investigation. I've heard that. I'm not going to say it until it's confirmed by CNN. But it's a very interesting scenario. But look, I mean, Senator Surovell, you ran for Senate. You had to raise a lot of money. Big district. If you were at your finance meeting one day and your finance chairman says, hey, we just got a check here for 120 large, wouldn't you ask a question?
Yeah, I mean, we rarely see $120,000 contributions at the state Senate level or the House of Delegates level. I mean, my entire campaign budget was about $500,000.
But if you were running for governor and you got a check for 120 large, you would ask a question, right?
Sure. I mean, I think any check that's over probably $10,000 gets pretty serious vetting by anybody. And the governor, with the amount of money you have to raise to run for governor, I mean, $10, $15, $20 million nowadays.
Yeah.
They have a lot of lawyers that look at these things and make sure everything's on the up and up. And $120,000, I guarantee you that there was at least 2 or 3 lawyers that looked at that before the check got processed.
All right.
I can't tell what the investigation is about. It sounds like there's a bunch of dots to connect in that one, too, and it's just not clear to me where they're going with it.
The lists are going to continue to come. Remember the McDonnell thing. It was like the Chinese water torture. And, of course, you and I were the first 2 people in Virginia to call on Bob McDonnell to resign. We were both right, as always. Scott Surovell, I'm out of time. Great to have you on our show, as always. I'm going to see you or talk to you during the Philadelphia convention. Great to have you with us, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Always great to be on, John. Thanks for having me again.
Scott Surovell.